Welcome back to Success is Weird and Messy. I'm your host, Kathleen Gabriel. Each week, I talk with entrepreneurs about their stories, the obstacles they've faced, and the changes they've made. Today, I am joined by Orly Zeewy, the founder of Zeewy Brands. She works with business owners to grow their company brands, turn their LinkedIn profiles into lead generators, and turn solopreneurs from invisible to memorable in 3 weeks. Orly, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, me too. It's always great to talk with you. So to kick us off, tell me more about Zeewy Brands.
So, first of all, let me just say I'm an author, a speaker, an educator, and I call myself a facilitator of light bulb moments. I have one superpower: I make fuzzy clear. And that's kind of my claim to fame. It's like, and if you're somebody who's struggling to make your fuzzy clear, which I would say is just about everybody I've ever worked with is struggling with that, then that's really who I work with. And the reason that that's important is because we're living in a world now where we're being messaged tens of thousands of daily marketing messages. And it's as if each of us is standing in the middle of Times Square hoping to be heard. And what's happening is because of that, we can't cut through the noise. And so what's happening is that we are struggling more and more to cut through the noise, to be heard, and to do that, you have to get your fuzzy clear. The clearer you are, the easier it is for me to find you, to remember you, to buy you, and most importantly, to refer you.
So when you say you make fuzzy clear, what kinds of fuzziness do you encounter with people who are trying to do their branding?
Oh my gosh. So the biggest one is I don't know how to tell somebody what I do so they will want to work with me.
Yep.
And so actually I'm working on several things right now around that topic. And it really comes so I start with the elevator pitch as kind of a almost a kind of the North Star. Like if your elevator pitch is not converting, it means that you are not talking to people. First of all, you're not talking to the right people. You're not talking to them with the right message, and or they don't understand the value of what you do.
Yeah.
So, and the big thing is that, clarity means less is more, right? So I could start telling you all about my process and how I do this and I do that, and nobody cares about that. So I always tell people, if you want to build a real elevator pitch and not a sales pitch, you need to move away from telling me what and how I do, and instead tell me why people work with you.
Yeah. No, that is so true. I mean, in my own journey, I know that I started out with, well, I know that HR is important, and therefore everyone else knows that HR is important, so I can skip past a certain thing. And what I've realized in my time as a consultant is you can't. You can't skip past any of that. No one knows.
And here's the other thing. Especially when you're a subject matter expert, which you are, you can't, you can't be at that. So it's like what I've heard, and I really love this, is that as subject matter experts, we tend to speak as if we're speaking to other PhD candidates, but
Yeah.
really we're talking to kindergartners. So you've got to think about, and I don't mean to belittle your audience. I mean that we are trying, we're aiming so high, we go into so much detail, and really all I want to know is what is this? Is it something I'm going to care about? Is it something that's going to help me in some way? It's going to help my business. And if it isn't, is it something that I understand well enough that I can refer somebody to you who can use your services? So even if you're not talking to the right person, when I say I make fuzzy clear, and by the way, it's taken me 20 years to be able to say that, just so you know, even people, even me who I literally, this is what I do for a living, it's
Yep.
taken me a while because it's really hard. It's easy to, it's like easy to talk a blue streak about what you do. It's really hard to give you somebody one sentence that helps them understand why they should work with you.
Oh, absolutely. And in all of that context, I always say, hey, look, if business owners were in the business of doing everything, they'd never get anything done. Because, you start off on your own and you're doing everything yourself. And then once you grow to a point, you get employees, you get more clients, you get whatever it is that you need to get that traction. You just literally don't have time. And the business owner isn't the expert in operations, and they shouldn't be. And
Exactly.
And so, yeah, bringing in people like you to say, okay, really though, how
Mhm.
do I focus in on the things that I'm unclear about and therefore my clients are unclear about?
Yeah.
That's how you grow your business at all.
And you're bringing up a really interesting point, Kathleen, which is that people have this tendency to think, oh, I'll just figure it out,
Yep.
like later. I'll figure this, so they kick the can down the road. And then, a lot of times I work with people in the 3 to 5 year, like that, because the 5 year mark, by the way, that's when, if the business is going to fail, that's when it happens. By year
Yeah.
five, 70% of startups are going to fail. That's seven out
Yeah.
of 10. So if you haven't, and clarity is a big part of why you fail because, and in my first book, Ready Launch Brand, I interviewed 25 startup founders, and one of the things I heard over and over again, it's like, we didn't know who our market was, we didn't understand what they needed, and we went to market with something that we literally was aimed at the wrong target market with the wrong product. Like we just
Yeah.
did that because people want to rush to put something out there. And what I often say is, sales is, marketing is about sales, right? It's like you're trying to sell a campaign, a product, a service, whatever it is. But if you don't understand what you're selling, your marketing efforts are going to fail because
Yeah.
there's no way that you can successfully market anything if you haven't first done the work of understanding who needs it, what's their pain point, how is your solution helping them sleep better at night, and finally, how are you different than everybody else, right? Like you need something that helps me. It's like, hopefully when someone thinks about, I need somebody to make my fuzzy clear, they're going to think about me because
Yeah.
because I'm not posting about every single thing I could talk about. I have like a couple, yeah, I have my one lane and I have a few topics that are related to that. And that's what I talk about. And I think that the mistake that a lot of business owners make is they're not sure about who they are. So then everybody's a client. You know what I mean?
And
And
that means nobody's a client.
and that means no one's a client. And then what happens is, fast forward a few years, and all of a sudden they're not able to get their clients. They're not
Yeah.
able to attract the kinds of clients that they really want to work with because they haven't identified all those things I just mentioned.
Yeah. No, that has taken me years to get through of I know why I think this is important, but literally, why should anyone else? And that was a question when again, first time business owner, you go out into the world and you learn so many new things. But that was a real learning curve for me of why should anyone care?
Right. Their business is not to care about you. Your
No.
business is to help me care, understand so I can care.
Yeah.
But it's not my job. Like this is what, and I see this a lot on homepages. Oh my God. And I've actually, by the way, I am like just as guilty as everybody else. I had like
Yeah.
all these cool graphics. It was beautiful. And people would say, oh, you have such a beautiful site. And then when I looked at I looked at the analytics, it's like everybody, all these people were landing on my homepage and they didn't go anywhere because
Yeah.
they didn't know what they were supposed to do. So
Right.
I forgot that too, and then I needed someone else on the outside to say, Orly, you really need to rethink this because I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't understand what you do. I don't understand where I should even go because it's so confusing. And I thought, wow, lesson learned. Okay,
Yeah.
so to get
Yeah.
rid of all this other stuff and really focus. What's the problem? What's the solution? How are you the right person to solve it? And then show me what the solutions are like, and then hopefully show me include testimonials so I can see how other people experience those things.
Well, and actually, you bring up a really good point, which is even when you're the expert, sometimes you need that third party voice to come in,
Always,
say,
sometimes.
here's my objective view.
Right.
So, even if another branding company is out there, they might get good value from engaging with you to say, hey, here's branding. I do that with other HR people all the time.
Do you? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Of just like, okay, this is my perspective, but I'm in the middle of it. What is your perspective that you're not in the middle of it?
Well, it's that old saying that you can't read the label from inside the jar.
Yeah. And actually, so you talked about a bunch of changes that you've made in your presentation. What kind of changes have you made in your business from just when you started out and what you thought you were going to do to
Yeah,
what, because there's always a change there, to what you're doing
constant.
now?
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, so I've been doing this now for 25 years is when I started my consulting practice, but it has gone through three iterations in the process. So I started out, I mean, I had a design and marketing communications firm for 14 years prior to starting my consulting practice. And, life happens, you have kids, you get divorced, things happen.
Yeah.
There's lots of life things that happen. But what I realized is that I started out really thinking about identity. But really, what I became really excited about is the idea of helping people avoid some of the mistakes I've seen over the years because I have this really deep background in marketing communications and I understand design and I understand what, every comma and semicolon means, So I can look at somebody's homepage and I could tell you exactly what you're communicating. And then we have to align that with, is this what you want to communicate? And most of the time the answer is no, that is not what you're hoping to communicate. But what I found is that as I was getting further into this, first of all, I went back and got an MBA because I really wanted to also understand the business side of it. So when I work with clients now and I try to help them get fuzzy clear, also get their fuzzy clear, not just on their brand, but also, their business model and how they're packaging their services because I work primarily in the B2B space. And so I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle. So this is now in 2014 when I was graduating with my MBA. And actually, Simon Sinek is like, he at one time, his TED Talk was the most watched TED Talk like ever. And what he did is he broke down the concept of how we buy. He created a circle. It's basically an outer circle, then there's a middle circle, and there's the inner circle. And the inner circle is the why, which is why you're doing this, why your clients work with you. The why is that's the core of your business. But what people tend to do is they talk about the what and the how.
Yep.
And what people really want to know is the why. And I like that, just that hearing, watching his TED Talk, and also meeting him in person, by the way. He came to Philadelphia, where I live, and he came to the Ritz-Carlton. It was like Jesus parting, or Moses parting the waters. It really was. He walks in. I mean, first of all, he's wearing clothes. He looks like he slept in them, right? And he just walks in, and everybody like,
And
it was wild. And he gets up there. I mean, the guy's brilliant. Okay.
yeah.
But anyway, so he did this, and he's written several books, and I have most of them. But this idea of the golden circle is that, you have to start with the why, or nobody's going to care about the what and the how.
Yeah.
So he gives all these examples. He said Martin Luther King didn't have a plan. He had a dream, right? Nobody would have followed him for a plan. And you think
Yeah.
about the Wright brothers, he uses that example, and he talks about why did they succeed? They had no money, then nobody knew who they were. And they were up against this guy whose name I can't remember at the moment, who had tons of money. The New York Times followed him everywhere, and he was not the first to be able to sustain flight. And that's
Yeah.
because he wasn't passionate about it. And the moment he realized he wasn't going to be first, he stopped, even though he had all this money and this backing. So there's this whole concept, that Simon Sinek goes into all this detail, and his books are really worth reading. The one I really enjoyed is called Leaders Eat Last. I would highly
Hmm.
recommend that one. But anyway, I would say that for me, I'm fascinated by this idea of the why.
Yeah.
And the why, it's so hard to get to it. And yet it is absolutely critical that you understand your why. And most people
Yeah.
skip over that, thinking again, oh, I'll figure it out. And then they build an organization built on no clear identity of what this thing is. And so then they build the wrong team, which, by the way, is the number three reason why the startups fail, because I
Yep.
have the wrong team. So there's all of that, and it really comes down to there's no magic pill, right? You have to do the hard work to get to it.
Yeah.
So that's, I wrote my first book really to unpack this whole process to get to the why.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the first 4 years of my business, I thought I had the why. I totally did. And then I just started talking to more people and saying, because again, I wasn't getting the results I wanted, so I wanted to see what else I could do. Went out into the world and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I got so many blank looks, I was stunned. And
Right,
and
because we're
that
not
made
talking to ourselves. That's the
yeah.
problem. Yeah,
And
if only we were just talking to people like us, they would all get it.
right. But that's not my clients.
I
And so I
know.
have to talk to people who would be in the same realm as my clients, potential people. And I went out and realized, oh, I am not at all making it clear anything about why. I'm all about what and how. And that has been a genuine shift because I really thought I had it. Look at me. I've got it figured out. Nope.
Because what people don't understand is knowing what you do and how you do it is not what people care about.
No,
So,
not even a little.
and so, I've helped, one of the things I do is I help you build an elevator pitch that actually converts and attracts your ideal clients. So in order to do that, you actually have to know who that person is. You have to know who you are, who they are, and you've got to be able to connect the dots and then clearly communicate that value. And so that's why, when I'm in front of somebody, I don't tell them all about my process and all the great things I've done or whatever. I just or certainly don't talk about my offerings. I talk about the fact that each of us is standing in the middle of Times Square hoping to be heard. That's the
Yeah.
problem. And
Yeah.
with fuzzy messaging, it makes it really, really hard to cut through the noise. That's what I do. I make fuzzy clear. Now it's got to be also be connect like what you do, your why has to connect with something real that
Yeah.
your clients are struggling with. Because if it's just something you're solving for yourself, there's no there. So
Yeah.
it means that we have to really do the work to figure out what that is. And so I often say to people, if you really don't know, just do an online survey, ask 5 questions. Why, to clients you've worked with, why did you work with me? What did you get out of working with me? I
Yeah.
mean, it can be something really simple and no more than 7 questions, by the way, because nobody's got that kind of time anymore.
Nope.
But, you choose, you can send it out. I mean, 25 is usually the minimum, 100 is best, but somewhere between 25 and 100. I mean, if you really want to know, that's what you do. I don't know if we have time, but I have a great
Yeah.
example of doing that for a client.
Great.
And it was, so this was a summer day camp. And they've been around since the 60s, and they used to be the gold standard of summer camp. So I worked with them I guess it was the early 2000s, late 90s. Anyway, they had hit a wall because they suddenly they started this day camp when mom stayed home. And so they realized they were losing market share. And in July they still had open spots. I mean, this is a summer camp, right? They lives and dies by the number of people who are there. And it turned out we did exactly this. We did an online survey. They got 100 responses. And one of the questions was, what's the number one reason you send your kids to camp here? Now, back up a couple steps here. They had been messaging around their lake for 40 years
Yeah. That makes
because
sense.
they have a huge lake, right?
Yeah,
But
totally. That
here's
that
the
sounds
thing.
like beautiful.
Out of the 100 people, guess how many people mentioned the lake?
I'm gonna say zero. If you're
One.
oh
One.
yeah, because if you're going down that path, like but
Nobody,
again,
they
I can
didn't
totally
care.
see I
I
can
know,
totally
but
see why they
again,
would. Yeah.
because it's a beautiful place. But so the other thing is, of course, is they're competing with Maine. Okay, you cannot
Oh,
compete with Maine.
nope.
Maine is literally America's like number one, like, vacation land or whatever. I mean, it's like one
Yeah,
of the
it's
beautiful places. You can
yeah.
even have like a cabin with no running water, and you can charge a lot of money for kids to go to camp there, right? Because it's
Yeah.
Maine. So
Yeah.
they were also trying to compete around. I mean, it's beautiful, it's an upstate northeastern Pennsylvania. It's beautiful, but it's not Maine. And so I said to them, you cannot compete on the same things that Maine is already winning. Why go somewhere where you already know you're going to be second best? Instead, what I did is I read literally dozens of letters from campers. And what I finally realized, and I talked to their people, I did like one-on-one interviews with their swim people, and I mean it's an incredible place, and people say the multiple kids come from the families there. And what it turns out, the reason why people literally send their kids there is because their kids took risks and they grew as human beings.
Oh,
And so
wow.
now it's the place where small kids do big things.
I love that so much because that is way more exciting than We have a beautiful location.
I know.
That is way more exciting than you'll get your kids out of your hair for a couple weeks. It's
It,
way more exciting than anything. Yeah,
but the thing is, it fit who they were because
exactly.
people met there and married their spouse through this camp. They sent their kids there. Their kids grew up, met their spouse. I mean, it's like that kind of place. And
Yeah.
the whole idea is that it's a place that, I mean, the letters I read, I mean, I was like literally crying. It was like it made me a better person, a better husband, a better human being, I mean, it was amazing. Like, and I said this to the director of the camp. He said, "But that's what every summer camp does." I said, "Yes, but they're not messaging around that." And
And
so,
also, honestly, not every summer camp does that.
no, well, the good ones, obviously.
Yeah, right. But
Caveat
that's
there.
it.
Yeah, just because that's what good camps are supposed to do doesn't mean there's a difference between what you do and what you talk about.
Yes.
And so they went from literally having open spots in July to having a wait list in March.
Mm. And honestly, that story tells me and reinforces for me the extraordinary value of targeted feedback, of actually
Absolutely.
asking people, hey, what did you get or not get from this? What were you excited about? What were you disappointed by? Because I know a lot of people are fearful about directly asking for feedback for whatever reason. Maybe they feel like they're going to impose on people. Maybe they feel like, oh, I don't know if they're only going to say good things, so I don't want to hear the bad things.
Well, I would say the thing that's important is to make it anonymous because
Yes,
nobody wants to give you bad news. If
right.
you're going to, so that's qualitative analysis. If you want to do quantitative rather, if you want to do qualitative analysis and you want to do one-on-one interviews, I would not. I mean, I've done those and I do them for someone else. You cannot do that yourself because no one's going to want to tell you the truth face to face. Yeah, anonymous, if it's anonymous, and you can do it just through Google Forms. I mean, it's really easy. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention is that they had also been using the same logo for like forever, and the logo literally had the lake on there. And
Yep.
so,
Well, of course it
again,
did.
of course. So one of the questions on the questionnaire was, "What do you think about? How do you feel about our logo?" And I swear to you that people literally said, "What logo?"
Oh no.
Not even see it.
Oh no.
So I actually designed the logo because at that time I was doing also logo design, and so now it's a picture of a child from the back, so you don't know if it's a male or female, and they're literally jumping off what could be the boat, the edge of a pool, right? They're jumping into water because it's small kids doing big things.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. That really illustrates everything that you're doing and everything that's important about what you're doing. Because, yeah, absolutely, finding out what are we actually doing here. And again, just like most business owners, those business owners are like, well, we know. We bring
But
kids to the
knowing,
lake.
knowing, and connecting this to an actual outcome, which is the desired outcome, that's very different.
Yep.
And what I've also discovered is that the process is so amazing because during the process, people get so excited about what they're doing because they realize, and I've had plenty of other examples, but this is the one that comes to mind. And I will say I had one of the greatest compliments I ever received was a client who said to me, because this is pre-pandemic, of course, so we were doing in person a large full day workshop. And at the end of it, the owner comes to me and he goes, I know these are your words, but they feel like mine,
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I love it when you can just resonate with people that
right?
deeply.
That's why I call myself facilitator of light bulb moments, right? It's that moment
Yeah.
like, I got what you were trying to tell me.
Well, in your own business, what is the kind of biggest or weirdest obstacle that you've faced?
I think it's really the technology and the way everything is shifting underneath our feet. I mean, the guy who wrote Future Shock, he wrote this in the 70s. And in the 70s, he said, today is the least amount of change you're ever going to see. He also
Yeah.
predicted that in the 20th century, there was 100 year of change, just as there typically was. In a century, there's 100 years of change. He said in the 21st century, there will be 2,000 years of change. And think about it, it's 2025. Look how much has changed already.
Yeah.
I
No, he
mean,
wasn't wrong.
it was not wrong. And so
Yeah.
for me, I think my biggest challenge is to continually be relevant. And interestingly enough, the more noise there is, the more the fuzzy to clear makes sense to people because we're being literally messaged 24/7. There is no downtime. It's 24/7. Content is not the problem. We have access to basically everything. The problem, what we don't have, is somebody to tell us what's useful.
Yeah.
We don't have someone to help us synthesize what we see and turn it into something useful. I equate this a lot with, just because you have an encyclopedia doesn't mean that you become a laureate, novelist or something. You have the tools, but without knowledge, without knowing how to use those tools successfully. And I think that's the thing that we are all up against, and then now with AI, of course, everyone's panicking because it's AI. Oh my God, what's going to happen? That's what they said when the internet came. And it was
I
like
was gonna say.
email, when email
Yeah.
was like, what's email? No one is going to use email, right? Like just computers. Nobody's going to use computers, right? And the thing is, it's what happens is, yes, we lose jobs, but we gain jobs we never even heard of.
Yeah.
So there are jobs today that did not exist 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Who was it that said you don't know the title of the job you will have because it doesn't
I've heard
exist right
that.
now?
I
There's
know.
so many things, and I definitely think, just like with every other technology that you mentioned, AI definitely has a space to be refined, to be less destructive, be more useful, but people are absolutely already using it, and panicked or not, for it
Yeah,
or
I mean,
against it, it's here.
yeah, and I've always found that instead of getting all worked up about, oh my God, what's going to happen, I think staying curious and saying, this is interesting. What can I learn? How will this change? Like what I'm doing now, my whole business is online.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. I mean, the fact that we're doing this interview, right, online, on an online platform that didn't exist 20 years ago. And so it's both a challenge and a blessing in a way because the challenge is to constantly see, I don't know if it's reinventing yourself. I think for me, it's like course correct. Like I look at this and I go, well, I really need to talk about, because I used to talk more about making yourself more relevant or thinking about, your identity was really important, but now it's really about really just cutting through the noise. And
Yeah.
the noisier it gets, the more this is relevant. Now, I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, but I know that that's been an ongoing challenge. And then, of course, there's also this idea that as things change, not only do I have to stay on top of it, but I also have to find a new way to separate what I do from other people who are doing similar things.
Yeah.
So I think
Absolutely.
there's that too.
Yeah, no, that's what we're all doing. So, this is the question that I ask everyone. Orly, how do you define success?
Oh, well, one thing that's happened, I do love that question. So because it's not about money, right? I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, money, of course, it's a measure of success. And certainly in this culture, it's a huge measure of success. But what I have found is that for me, every time I work with a woman who raises her prices because of the work we do, that's a success.
I love that.
One of my missions in life, and one of the reasons why I'm writing my second book, Why Not Me, the Female Guide for Entrepreneurship, where I've interviewed 43 women founders across the country, throughout the world. And I will tell you that my mission now is to close the wage gap, or at least narrow it. It has not substantially changed in 60 years. And I'm very careful to say it's white men and white
Yeah.
women, as the numbers are different for other people. But I will tell you, it's that for me. If I could close the wage gap, even by like another nickel, I would feel successful.
I love that mission. I love that definition because you're absolutely right. The wage gap in the jobs that we go to work and are hired for, there's a gap. And in our asking for money as business
Yeah,
owners ourselves,
that's
there is
right.
a gap.
And
And there doesn't need to be.
and here's the other thing too, is that in every job across the board, no matter what the job is, women are making 20% less.
Yeah.
across the board. And if you think about the 24 cents that we're losing every year over a career, that's $400,000.
Ugh. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
too much. That's way too much.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anything I can do to help you support that success, I am here for it.
Well, thank you. Well, if people want to learn more about me, they can go to zeewybrands.com. My book is available on Amazon, Ready Launch Brand, the lead marketing guide for startups. My new book is almost done, but is looking now for a publisher. So once that's been picked up by a publisher, then I'll have a pub date and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, terrific. Well, we'll have all of your links in the show notes. And also, everyone, make sure that you go to Orly's website for her brand clarity breakthrough and other resources that she has for you. And as always, thank you so much for listening. You can find Success is Weird and Messy wherever you get your podcasts. And it helps us so much if you follow, rate, and review. And if you like the show, tell a friend. We'll see you next week.